Hey the internet, this is Luck. I woke up this morning in a cold sweat with the horrifying realization I hadn't used hot take as a pun for a Heart of Thorns reveal reaction. This will not do, so here is my hot take on the Guild Wars 2 Raids announcement. It's really funny to think that 3 years ago many people were defending the decision to not include raiding in Guild Wars 2. It turned out that it was a smart decision for the game. Guild Wars 2 continues to be very successful, and judging by the reaction to Heart of Thorns, it'll continue to be a top player in the MMORPG world for some time. But now, 3 years later, 5 million copies sold, raids are coming to Guild Wars 2. How exciting. It's a bold move, bit of a change in direction, but an obvious solution to answer an existing demand for challenging instance group content. Dynamic scaling of large-scale world events is all well and good, but tuning for a higher level of challenge and difficulty is a different beast entirely. And I think there are many just incredible aspects to Guild Wars 2. It's a game I really love. They've made a lot of brave decisions with it that I think on the most part have worked out. But one of my main criticisms of the game since before launch actually was that the encounter design was just a little out of step with the game's combat systems. A lot of discussion about Trinity combat can be boiled down to when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. For years, the only encounters that we experienced in instance content were nails, if you like. The Trinity was the hammer, and it works really well. But then, when Guild Wars 2 came out and said, we haven't got a hammer, we've got a screwdriver, there was a little bit of negative reaction. Some people were like, I'm into hammers, that's fair enough, that's all well and good. But many people jumped to the opportunity the new challenge presented. Unfortunately, instead of screws to go with our screwdriver, we got essentially more nails. That's how the metagame of Guild Wars 2 Dungeons has become more about the best or at least most optimal ways to break the content or find the loopholes that allow it to be beaten in a way that it was never really intended to be played. This has recently actually been acknowledged in an official ArenaNet blog post, albeit with less tortured metaphor. I've been very impressed so far with ArenaNet's commitment to not only their foundational principles, but in taking feedback and making it work for their game. But if there's one part of this whole lead up to Heart of Thorns that I'm not yet convinced that they can get right, it's the encounter design for this kind of content. And not just because they didn't really stick the landing the first time around, but because it's not something that's really been convincingly achieved by anyone before. I think what we've seen so far, it looks fun. It certainly looks suitably raidy. Adding the new gliding system is a nice touch in terms of linking new endgame progression to this new endgame content. I think it's safe to assume guild halls will play a role as well. Other types of max level advancement, I'm sure, will tie into it. Knowing that the dynamic event system plays a role in the structure of the raids is interesting as well. There's so many neat tricks that they can use it for, and the different ways that events can trigger means potentially there's a way to add variety into the raid that goes beyond a random roll for which boss spawns, etc. The holy grail for raiding. Encounters that still feel fun when on farm. Can it be done? We'll see. We'll see if this is the time. We've been told as well that effective raiding builds will need to have a mix of support and control, as well as the direct damage, which has become the dominant strategy to end all dominant strategies in instance content in Guild Wars 2. And I think if that's true, it would almost be enough for me to get me into it, to keep me around for a decent amount of time. I'm a huge fan of the build system in Guild Wars 2, the elegance and the design, the thought that's gone into it. After the recent changes as well, I think it's just tightening it up, trimming the fat. It's been nice to see, and it's easier to see the thought processes behind the way that the different classes can achieve similar results through different means. It's really interesting to see. But I've been waiting for an environment that allows the build system to show really do and what it's really capable of, and all these different builds for the different classes that are baked into the game. Like, so many ways, so many options for characters and players to interact with each other, instead of the tiny fraction we've seen so far within the game's dominant strategies. Path of least resistance is what it comes down to. And when it comes to traditional raiding, I think it's easy. I think it's easy to make fun. And we've heard it a lot of times before. It's easy for a developer to get up on stage and make fun of bloated raid UI, watching bars instead of the action. And it's great for them to be aiming for something different. But the fact remains that system worked and has been enjoyed by millions of people for well over a decade. And trying to throw a spanner into the works of that is, I think, fraught with a few more potential pitfalls than a lot of people give it credit for. Not least that now a lot less people are raiding seriously and regularly than used to, outside of World of Warcraft, but that's a different thing. Trying to sell people something new can really feel like dragging them uphill, and all I can think about is how just a few years ago it was selling the idea of not having raids. Like, all the forums, like Reddit and everything, it was all, oh, raids, you can't not have raids in an MMO. It was such an uphill path, and it's interesting to see how we've really turned a corner on that. It seems like the most successful MMO products of recent years have completely abandoned the notion of raiding. But as we turn that corner, it's just more uphill again. It's just more uphill, as it's almost like we're trying to convince people again that, yeah, raiding is okay and raiding can be fun and it's okay to have raiding in the game. And maybe if you're not into it, then you don't have to do it. Or maybe it's just uphill all the way down. And while the idea of raiding does seem to go against some of the principles of Guild Wars 2, I hope that the intention behind that is to open up new areas for growth. And along with the base game now being free, the game opens up to new people who may not have considered it before, or maybe people who played before and stopped because there wasn't that challenging instance endgame content that they were after out of an MMORPG. And it'll be really interesting to see how the population of the game reacts to it over time. So what do you think? Do you think it's a positive step for Guild Wars 2 to introduce raiding? Do you think it's going to kill the game as we know it? Do you think it's going to be over? Do you think they'll nail it and we'll see a new kind of raiding that doesn't lean on the Trinity system? Do let us know in the comments below. Give this video a like if you think any of this was worth your time, if you think it's a discussion worth having, and make sure you subscribe for many wonderful things from fabulous people, and I'll see you again real soon. Thanks. Bye.
Make sure to level up your MMO knowledge by visiting MMORPG.com, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and by following us on social media. To catch up on the week's biggest MMO news, watch our latest MMO FTW. And to see if there's a better MMO out there for you, watch one of our latest First Impressions videos. Thanks for watching.